Welcome back, everyone, to the StarLadder and iLeague Star Series Season 3, Day 6. With me, Zalay, on the casting desk again. We're going to be going through another matchup coming up after Pavel versus RDU. RDU took it 3-1 for those who did not see it. Now we're going to have StanUtachi versus StanCifka. These two gentlemen like their control decks, and no doubt will be showcasing a lot of that.
Not only do they like their control decks, they like to innovate, they like to experiment, figure out new stuff. StanCifka in particular, bringing that Silence Priest, and it got banned from StanUtachi. StanUtachi with a respect ban on Silence Priest, which kind of bums me out a little bit. I love that. Silence Priest is like one of my pet decks right now. It's so fun. There's a lot of planning ahead and complicated decision making and so forth, and also you get to hit people for 60 sometimes. That's cool too.
Sure. That's part of the appeal.
Yeah, and StanUtachi felt like he didn't really want to get hit for 60. By banning Silence Priest, he's really helping to protect his Druid a lot, and to a lesser extent his Mage. His Paladin would probably do pretty well against the Silence Priest, but he doesn't want to have to deal with that. He's more okay with Stan's other decks. And Stan bans the Rogue, which is pretty typical for a control lineup. Banning Rogue, Rogue tends to be an anti-control class.
Yeah, which is kind of what this is one of those weird spots for ShtanUtachi where he's looking at Rogue and Priest and is thinking, these two decks completely roll all over me, and it's a problem for him. So he's got to ban one of them, but the other one stays alive. So StanCifka with the Rogue here is not feeling too bad about this. I think going forward, that deck is, in the matchup at least, in the lineup that is supposed to take one. The Shaman for StanCifka, though, on the more interesting side, the Elemental Shaman with no Servants of Kalimos, so it's just kind of a Flame Tongue package, play the early game, and transition nicely into the mid game. How do you feel about how it's positioned in the meta, just generally speaking?
Yeah, Shaman, for a while there, a couple weeks ago, I would have said it's like definitely a bottom 3 class in Hearthstone, like one of the weaker classes out there. But it's been getting new life breathed into it by Stonehill Defender getting extra thing from blows, and then you Spirit Echo, and you just get a lot of 0 mana 5/5 taunts with pretty good value to go alongside it. So that kind of ups the power level of the deck, and it's seeing, I think, more play largely because of that interaction. But we're going to see mid-Paladin versus some kind of slower Mage.
Yeah, it's I believe, Discover Mage as well from StanUtachi. Not bringing Secret Mage. From what I remember, pretty much every Mage in the event was a Discover Mage. We didn't see Freeze, the pure Freeze build. That seems to have just kind of gone down. I expected to see more Secret Mage, but the decks were submitted, I think, kind of at the cutoff when people started realizing that Secret Mage was a really good deck. In fact, we saw Hoy take his title with a Secret Mage in the lineup. So definitely not a deck to underestimate, but I think the submissions were a bit too early.
Right. And we can see Gentle Megasaur in StanCifka's hand. That's a card that's kind of an archetype identifier to an extent. It tells us that it's not a super slow control Paladin. It does have a larger Murloc package and more aggression to it, so more mid-range.
The Aldor kind of solidifies that, right? Like towards the mid-range side instead of hyper aggro. So
yeah, a lot of people don't play the Aldor Peacekeeper in their aggro Murloc Paladin, which, by the way, is something I disagree with. I like the Aldor Peacekeeper in the aggro Paladin. I think it's a good tempo tool, get ahead on board, snowball an early board lead, win the game. Other people see it differently. They prefer other cards in that slot, like maybe a Stonehill Defender to discover more Terrams.
Oh, so it's an interesting idea. We've seen people, cut Cold Light Seers even in some lists, which is dubious. If you're playing hyper aggro, it's kind of tough to keep those Murlocs around without that. Now, StanCifka, planned out his turns, knowing that he would pick up a secret, assumed he would have to hero power on turn 2, hence the decision to use the Hydrologist. But one of the things that I like about the play that he made, although it felt kind of slow, coining out Hydrologist without a follow-up, is that it sets up for any of the 1-drops in his deck to be live with whatever secret he picks up. So playing to the outs in the deck more so than just the hand that he was dealt.
And Stan last turn made a key play. He played the Sorcerer's Apprentice instead of the Medivh's Valet, which dies on board where the Medivh's Valet contests efficiently. The reason he went for that 3/2 stat line is he was respecting the Rock Pool Hunter. When your opponent coins Hydrologist, Rock Pool Hunter is a card that should very much be on your mind. Now, StanCifka, Rock Pool Hunters, it doesn't get any value out of the battle cry, whereas had Stan played the stronger on-board play of the Valet, he would have got blown out by a Rock Pool Hunter, leaving StanCifka with an extra 3/1 on board. It's a big deal. So Stan takes the trade to deny Cifka takes the trade to deny StanUtachi the mana discount and just develops stuff. Pretty normal turn for him.
Well, ShtanUtachi with the Cabal Courier had the chance to get himself more value with the Courier's Glimmer Root, but I don't think that's something that you're going to extract value out of, generally speaking. The odds that you hit something you care for is pretty slim, so he's going to opt for Spellbender, which is good to snipe, like Spiker's Steed and Blessing a King. It's probably one of the highest value matchups, I think, for the Spellbender. Like, no hesitation there, just saw it, snapped it.
Yeah, I think the Glimmer Root was a pretty good option for StanUtachi. It's just the Spellbender is like uniquely powerful against Paladin because of the Spike Ridge Steed, as you mentioned. It's a lot stronger than Counterspell, not only because you actually take the thing, but more because it avoids being baited by Hydrologist secrets and that kind of thing. Like a Counterspell, sometimes it runs into a coin or a Hydrologist secret, but the Spellbender just waits to get that big key spell, the Spike Ridge Steed.
Yeah, and StanCifka can't really afford to play around that stuff usually. Oh, yeah. Did you see that? Because I don't think you've seen Stan's deck yet, but Pyros was one of those weird inclusions that we saw last time, when we were looking at the deck list. It's like, it's a very value-oriented deck, and Pyros is an extremely value-oriented card in what it does. A single slot that gives you 3 steps of board presence, I guess, recurring over the entire game. I'm not sure how effective it is, but since it's a decent 2-2 to just jam against some of the aggro decks, and it's got some decent mid-range potential, maybe that's something people will experiment more with, because I feel like it's just been underused, underutilized, undertried even.
Sure, Pyros is popping up in these secret mages, partly because it fills in that 6-drop slot, and just adds some oomph to the deck, some staying power, some ways to continue spending the mana, keep the game going a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But StanUtachi's Mage here, really value-centric with Cabalist Tome and Pyros. Those are both 3-for-1s.
StanCifka's forced to play on tempo. I mean, I say forced to play on tempo, but is that big a deal?
Oh, he doesn't mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, with a hand like this, I think you're cool with that. And he picks up Poisonous to deal with the Medivh Valley all at the same time. Might just take the value trades again, trying to force the Mage to ping the 1/1 without being able to play a minion. And now suddenly Fireland's Portal's looking awful.
Yeah, that's the point of the Poisonous, I think, is he knows StanUtachi's going to very likely Fireland's Portal on 7, so he wants a Poisonous 1/1 to clean up that 5-drop.
And that's going to be an insane 1/1.
Yeah. So StanCifka rewarded for that insight to pick Poisonous over +1/+1. Setting up for the Fireland's Portal. A 2/2 would not do this. Yeah, he picks up another Tyrion. You could do worse than double Tyrion. That's a lot of value.
Against a deck that doesn't run Polymorph. Yeah, I mean, I think you're good to go.
Well, you say it doesn't run Polymorph. I see a Paveling Book and a Cabalist Tome. That's infinite Polymorphs in hand.
All right, by the power of the motherland, I summon thee.
Yeah. This would be a good turn to play a randomly generated secret to try and scare StanCifka off as playing his Tyrion or Rag Lightlord on curve. Try and represent the Mirror Entity or Potion of Polymorph that he doesn't actually have. But I think the Ice Block and Counterspell are both from his deck. So.
Yeah, they're both natural draws from the deck. So he'd have to pick one up from Babbling Book to really spook StanCifka. And that is a randomly generated secret.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Is he actually gonna? Yeah, it looks like he's kind of dying. Maybe he can't afford to. Doesn't.
He's kind of dying. Sure.
Kind of, a little bit dying. Yeah. Mm.
All right, just partly dead.
This game is just StanCifka's been ahead the whole time on board, and StanUtachi doesn't have the tools to kind of recover or catch up. Like he has Alexstrasza and Pyroblast are kind of more offensive tools, and a bunch of secrets that interact with spells, which StanCifka doesn't have to play because his minions are getting the job done just fine. He's tested Mirror Entity the previous turn. Doesn't expect Stan to have a Mirror Entity from deck there, so he doesn't play around it at all.
Yeah, StanCifka also with no incentive to ever play that Spiker Steed. So, we were talking about how Spellbender was amazing. It's less amazing when you're so far behind. Like, the opponent has no incentive to even play into it at all. So it's kind of tough for you to capitalize on that Spellbender being there. On the flip side, there's an Ice Block, so he's going to stay alive. Then he's got the Blizzard. Set up another secret.
Yeah, Blizzard's exactly the kind of thing that StanUtachi needs to get back into this game, get that board under control. Stop damage, put some damage on the board, but Cifka has all the tools in the world to figure things out.
So the only misplay is Spiker Steed. Everything else goes. So he's eliminated what? So he's eliminated Ice Barrier, Vaporize. There's Ice Block definitely in there, he's assuming. Counterspell, has that been eliminated? I don't think so.
No, it's Ice Block and something for spells.
Yeah.
He doesn't know which thing for spells exactly.
There's 3 of them now, it's complicated.
Yeah, Mana Bind, Counterspell, and Spellbender, which is the one that it actually is. And he has the other 2 options in hand, which are pretty bad for StanUtachi now, because it's quite redundant, and it's not what he needs. Like, you sort of want, like, one of those effects, and you end up with 3. It's sort of like weapons. You want one. One's really good, but having a bunch of them, you can't use them all at the same time, really.
1 counterspell's good, 4 counterspell's not so good.
Right.
StanCifka's looking at the least commitment he can put on this board while still popping the block again.
He needs to be able to deal with an Alexstrasza coming out. That's crucial.
Yeah.
He wants to be able to deal 15 damage, but he has that Murloc War Leader, so 15's pretty easy.
Okay, well the problem with that play is suddenly...
If you Flame Strike, what are you doing about the Tyrion?
I think you just die. You have to Blizzard no matter what. I think there's really no way around it.
You can set up a secret with this.
If you play the 1 in your deck, which is the counterspell, you can assume he might think it's Ice Block. Either way, he wants to pop you, so... Doesn't really change all that much.
The counterspell plays around Consecration. It's actually a really key point. That's why StanUtachi went for the counterspell over the other secrets there.
Let's not die.
Because his Spellbender was just not going to stop a Consecration from killing him.
Would be pretty sick, though, if he redirected all the damage Consecration did to itself. Too bad there's just no targeting. So StanCifka, again, trying to commit the least amount possible while making sure Alexstrasza still gets popped through, because Alex alone does not leave enough mana on StanUtachi's side to do anything else. Oh. Well, here's a draw.
Yeah, Ice Block. That's going to help StanCifka hang on a little bit longer.
Job done.
But the damage does just keep coming turn after turn. Like, Stan has that weapon, he's a minion, he gets to develop more minions.
Some Christmas trees are just better than others. ShtanUtachi's Christmas tree right now, not very effective against what StanCifka's holding. How do you stop that weapon? You're basically looking for Frostbolt, guaranteed. So you have to Alex yourself, and then do you survive?
Put your faith in the
That was interesting. He attacked with the weapon first rather than the burn bristle first. He used a weapon charge, which, as it turned out, could have been avoided by attacking with burn bristle first. I guess he was playing around something.
Huh.
Alright, StanUtachi healing up to 15. He's staring down 13.
Well, he's actually
if gets it.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you attack with Tyrion first and then you Sunkeeper, you're good to go. So
There's actually 14 discounted, but either way, it's enough with the Tarim. StanCifka is going to go for it. He's been very carefully playing around this Spellbender all game. He's not going to play into it now with Spiker Steed.
That's going to be it. StanCifka is going to take it 1-0 over StanUtachi. In the first game, it's not really too big a deal. This is not like a massive upset, given the way these decks play up against you. So their mid-range Paladin is probably slightly ahead of the Discover Mage because of the amount of pressure it puts down. The Mage struggles to handle wave after wave of minion, and then we're talking about like value minions like Tyrions and whatnot. Those also become a problem. Yeah, I'm not sure how you could tech that Mage deck to beat Paladin more consistently without making it like a freeze deck at the end of the day.
Yeah, it does seem like StanCifka's lineup is probably favored against StanUtachi's lineup, especially when you see StanUtachi has to ban the Priest and leave the Rogue up. That's kind of a feels bad moment for StanUtachi.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It just feels dreadful having to, and this is what I think a lot of the matchups we've seen, or the lineups we've seen, seem to come down to. Is like, here's this quest rogue I need to ban almost no matter what, unless I'm targeting it with aggro.
Whoa.
And then there are two decks that just beat me, but StanCifka, with a hand he'd rather pass over given the choice.
Yeah, this looks like StanUtachi might be able to tie it up. StanUtachi has an extremely aggressive hand here, and StanCifka has an extremely slow, passive, greedy value. Like Aya double tied Bloodlust and Spirit Echo.
Spirit Echo.
Oh wow! Just a disaster of a hand for StanCifka. It's exactly what he doesn't need.
I don't even know how he's gonna catch up with this. I can't even think.
I mean, he needs to hit like
Storm?
turn 4 spell damage totem into Maelstrom Portal. I don't know if he's playing Lightning Storm. Sometimes he plays like Devolves. He could pick up a Devolve this turn.
Okay, that is good. Yeah,
but
this is
Devolve,
good too,
Maelstrom Portal, Volcano are generally the AoE recovery tools, and Volcano's pretty far off. He takes a lot of damage in the process.
I don't know if it's StanCifka we saw in the event so far, but I know one of the Shamans, and I'm sorry for not remembering, but one of them actually brought Lightning Storm, double Maelstrom, double Devolve to the roster, which is really intense on the AoE front.
So StanUtachi didn't go for Spellbender that turn because he knows StanCifka is overloaded, so he's not going to be playing Jade Lightning this turn. I have seen some Lightning Bolts in StanCifka's lists lately, so Spellbender was a consideration for that reason, to try and protect the mana worm from a Lightning Bolt. But the Arcanilic kind of pays off here. The Arcanilic kind of pays off because now he gets a Battling Book to fill out the 4-mana turn. Oh, Battling Book into Fireball, exactly when he needs more reach to really, push for the
close that game out, because the Shaman's got a limited amount of healing. I mean, they've got Hot Spring Guardians, they've got the big Kalimos guy, that 7 mana,
Jinyu.
that 8 mana,
Probably
7/7. Jinyu. I haven't seen Jinyu in StanCifka's list. From what I've seen, it's just a Jade, it's like a Jade mid-range with no Servants of Kalimos, but it's running the Fireflies, I think, for the sake of getting Flame Tongue value. So it's just a very curvy deck. It reminds me a bit of the old school Naxxramas era mid-range.
Sure. And StanUtachi going to play Arcanologist and Valet this turn, clearing the board. Both players just kind of fighting for board. Just want to be ahead on board is kind of the gist of the early game in Hearthstone.
Well, StanCifka finally gets something to do, though. The Aya Blackpaw turn is a really big deal. It is forcing StanUtachi more often than not to expend a lot of resources, trying to combat this. Oh my god!
Yeah, Power Blast, look for eventual lethals makes some sense. Stan was kind of thinking about maybe looking for a polymorph effect to deny the Death Rattle of Aya, but what's better than denying Death Rattle is killing your opponent. So it worked out. Oh, it gets both.
There you go. You can do both. There's no problem there, Zale. You just gotta get double glyph and good to go.
He takes the trades, which is interesting because he has 2 Power Blasts in hand.
I think the idea here is
I
have double block. I have double block. I have Fireball, double Pyro. So I've got lethal already set up. So the only problem is with the Frostbolt, I even deny like a Hot Spring Guardian slapped on top. So the big deal here is what blows me out, and that's going to be double Flame Tongue turns where suddenly I get pushed into preventing the boards from snowballing more so than anything else. So it's really just an overly cautious turn. But I think the discrepancies in your win rate are really slim, right?
Well, it makes a lot of sense when you look at StanCifka's hand. StanUtachi's like, well, he's playing Flame Tongue, he's playing Spirit Echo, he's playing Bloodlust. Maybe I should just trade with his minions the whole time. Right? And now that he picks up Alexstrasza, trading makes even more sense. Now that he has Alexstrasza, having pushed the face damage would not be as valuable because it would be kind of redundant with Alexstrasza's Battle Cry effect.
Yeah, so redundancy is kind of the name of ShtanUtachi's hand this time.
Right, yeah. Stan's kind of thinking he'd like to just play for board and then turn 9 Alexstrasza and flip it up and start smorking for the rest of the game.
Seems like a good plan.
So this is probably a Kabbalist Tome turn, which doesn't play for board, but it's consistent with the game plan of setting up for the turn 9 Alexstrasza and then going all face. He doesn't want to start shooting burn right now.
Staying
could
consistent.
Volcanic Potion for a full clear, but he values to save that resource for later. The AoE is going to be good against the Shaman board, more so than it is now. He'd basically be discarding a Volcanic Potion to kill a Wrath of Air Totem, which just doesn't sound like a good deal against the Shaman. So this is a key turn for StanCifka to flood the board, knowing that he's walking into an Alexstrasza turn. And he goes so hard on flooding the board, he even portals, and he hits a great one, Runic Egg, Death Rattle, draw a card, which he'll be able to activate later with the Flame Tongue Totem, potentially.
And he gets the double Thing from Below Spirit Echo Dream, which gives him, of course, another wave of Things from Below afterwards, which is actually one of the big power plays of this deck.
Yeah.
It's the way you usually are able to play the value game. You're only weak with that kind of play to like Devolve or Mass Dispel or Vanish. So there's not too many matchups in the meta where that becomes a big deal, because the mirror match is not that common.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I was saying before we even started the match. Is just that thing from below at Spirit Echo. You're getting 0 mana 5/5s for tempo and for defensive purposes, but alongside it, Spirit Echo for just a lot of value. It's just quite a power play. So StanCifka doing some math. If you Alex face, and then you're taking 14 on board, Bloodlust is another 6 times 3 would be 18.
18, yeah.
So it's a total of 32. So the Bloodlust pops you, but doesn't clear. It might potentially clear Alexstrasza at the same time because of spreading Flame Tongue damage. So if you Alex face, you get popped, then you do have a second ice block, but you can't play a Pyroblast. You
can go
ice block,
Pyro.
Fireball.
You can Fireball with ice block, and I think you're good to go, right? Seems good.
Yes.
I don't know.
So Stan has a sort of a multi-turn lethal setup that gets him in a little bit of trouble against healing from StanCifka. And StanCifka's deck does play quite a bit of healing. There's probably a second Hot Spring Guardian, 2 Jinyu Water Speakers. Once in a while, you see some other heals. There should be the Kalamos in there, I would expect. Maybe not. We haven't seen too much of the Elemental.
I think there is the Kalamos, unless he decided to cut them. But I remember he was running Fire Ellies with Kalamos. It's a very value-oriented deck with, Servant of Kalamos doesn't even make the cut because it's not even tempo heavy enough. So it's like a really interesting hybrid between like the value-oriented early Elemental Shaman builds and the kind of the tempo builds that we've seen crop up recently. So I think respecting the healing as the only way to lose the game is good by ShtanUtachi here. But the problem is I think he's putting himself in the same spot if StanCifka redeveloped the exact same board afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there was an argument to simply go for it early, since anyway healing messes you up the same amount afterwards.
Well, Stan definitely has a smaller board this time around. It's less minions for Bloodlust. The Bloodlust is only 12 instead of 18 last time. So now he's going for the Alexstrasza.
Oh,
and there's a
Hot
healing
Spring Guardian.
StanCifka. It does get him out of range of this 2-turn lethal. He does have damage to pop here. So StanCifka could go for popping the ice block with Bloodlust and having defensive tools behind it in Hot Spring Guardian. He does feel like he needs to heal this turn. Something like Double Fireball Frostbolt would be lethal from 15. And he knows StanUtachi does have a Glyphed card in hand, so even 18 potential damage. Here comes the Bloodlust. He's going to want to pop him at a low life total.
Well, is there ever an argument for being wary of dying to Flame Strike ping? Well, just Flame Strike, that is. So if you see Flame Strikes, you're not dead immediately, but you're dead afterwards. So the issue is, how much does the damage push win you the game? Because I don't think you can ever win if you don't commit.
It's tough to pop StanUtachi and deal with Alexstrasza. I don't think you can do both. And you don't want to devolve an Alexstrasza. Giving your opponent 8 drops a disaster. A lot of times 8 drops are like the best mana cost to have a random minion in the game. They're better than 9 and 10. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it is what it is.
Now that's putting a dent in StanUtachi's ability to really fight for board, because his goal was to go for Ice Block, Fireball, Face, and then set up the Pyro, but now StanCifka is just out of range. I mean, he can put him down to 1 HP, I think. Oh no, 8 mana Pyro does it, right? With Fireball, Ping. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Never mind. The 8 mana Pyro solves everything. We're so dumb, Zoe.
Good. No, that's a good catch. So this turn you Ice Block to buy another turn. You Fireball, Ping Face, setting him to 11, and that sets up for next turn the Pyroblast Ping lethal. All because of that 8 mana Pyro you were talking about. Good catch. But he's going with a different line. He might have missed it. He missed the lethal setup.
He was
Good
thinking.
Catch, Noxus.
He was thinking the same way we were thinking, which is I can deal exactly 16, or I mean I can deal 17, but not 18. Wow, I think he missed it for real.
Yeah.
Based on this,
you had the better line there, for sure, Noxus.
Was he playing? Did he just kill Hot Spring Guardian? Because I think he might have been playing around Spirit Echo off of it to reheal.
Okay.
But I don't think he wins any other way.
Well, it was only Alexstrasza damage that he used to kill Hot Spring Guardian, so it wasn't like a big commitment. The Alexstrasza wasn't really worth anything there. It's just kind of free to play around second Spirit Echo on Hot Spring.
was going to say he wins with Frostbolt anyway, right? He's got one left, so maybe he was banking on playing around Spirit Echo and winning with Frostbolt, but that seems super far-fetched. I mean, he's got no board clears in hand. You know, he picked up the Flame Strike, so that clearly that changes things a little bit, but it wasn't looking good at that point in time.
So Flame Strike ping clears the board. What's ShtanUtachi's secret right now?
Spellbender, so he's going to take that Jade Lightning to the face.
And die.
So he's expecting that Jade Claws number 2 kills him, and Jade Lightnings both do. So he's expecting to die most of the time here, I think, given what he's seen from his opponent. And there's going to be Fire Elemental off the draw, just to consolidate the fact that StanCifka had all the options in the world.
StanCifka taking a 2-0 lead over ShtanUtachi, consistent with the favored lineup. The Mage is just unable to deal with these wave after wave of threatening minions from Shaman and Paladin. Paladin can just hero power out of 1, and Shaman can just hero power out of Totem, and even those tiny minions are very threatening because of the potential of Flame Tongue, and the potential of Murloc War Leader, and the potential of Gentle Megasaur, and those kinds of things. And it's just tough to deal with, just hero powered out, just any tiny little minion turn after turn after turn. So Quest Stroke here.
That's going to be rough for, honestly, just facing off against that deck, you're just waiting to see what type of opener they get. You're hoping for Mana Worm, Arcanologist, get that chip damage in. That is not exactly what ShtanUtachi is given.
ShtanUtachi has a decent opener. He could just Tempo Valet here, and then a lot of times maybe a Gluttonous Ooze destroying 1 weapon charge. Picking off Arcane Intellect will work out. Okay. He's going to play the girl because it's a higher threat minion, and he knows that Rogue struggles to clear things early on. For StanCifka to deal with this girl, he would need to, Dagger, Coin, Deckhand, or some kind of Pirate plus a Stone Tusk Boar. They're very inefficient dealing with the girl, so he plays the girl immediately to start, getting the benefit of her discount. But then, actually, it doesn't work out well when Coin Igneous Elemental comes out.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Igneous Elemental is really just it's not a card you play around, so you don't, choose to hold the Apprentice. But in this case, it was a really big tempo deal for StanCifka, because barring that, he would have had to play in his deck a backstab, like we saw RDU do earlier to catch up. This is suddenly putting ShtanUtachi in the position of at least being able to be so far ahead on the board that he can start getting chip damage in, though. So Shtan's still, I would say, in a great spot.
StanCifka is in a great spot, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a Stan mirror.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Is this Stan versus Shtan? You're right. We already mispronounced those often enough. Yeah, I think Cifka, with the hand that he's got, with the double elementals, he's looking pretty sweet here.
Yeah, so one thing Cifka is going to be looking to do is to set up to have a 0 mana minion in hand from Shadow Step for the Vanish turn, and then that can be a way to help him complete the quest a little bit. Actually, he can complete the quest pretty easily without doing that. He just has 2 Flame Elementals, plus a Brewmaster, plus a Shadow Step. That's 4. He doesn't even need the Vanish.
Holy fire. That's going phase, baby. So right now, ShtanUtachi is just on the burn plan, which gave actually the people call this deck Burn Mage, I think, a lot of the time. And it's for a reason.
This is why, yeah. Sometimes turn 4 rolls around, they're like, you know what? That 1/2 is too threatening. I'm giving up on this board.
Yeah, it's too much. I can't handle this because I can't stop the guy from doing his thing anyway. I'm pushing 5 damage if I can.
He knows killing that 1/2 isn't relevant because the opponent has another one in hand. And so he's always got something to bounce. And you just don't want to be wasting damage killing minions. You want to kill your opponent. That's how you win the game.
Yeah, and this is actually one of those really good turns too, because ShtanUtachi, by forcing the rogue to trade away with the dagger, ended up dealing a little bit more damage with the board that he was holding. And this is also one of the key components about the matchup, is that your little chip damage minions do not get answered by Eviscerates and Backstab, so they actually hit face pretty much every time. Because the rogue values their little minions that turn into 5/5s, and it won't just pitch them for no reason.
And StanCifka picked up the Preparation last turn, which is a huge draw for him. It allows him to complete the quest and play 3 mana worth of minions in the same turn. Really massive tempo swing for him. StanUtachi pretty happy to see an ice block there. Not only does it buy him a turn down the road, but it lets him develop his Medi's Valet on kind of a perfect turn. He trades this time because he knows that 1/2 is about to become a 5/5, and so he'd rather kill it while it's a 1/2. This time it's worth it.
Yeah, you gotta respect it.
He's respecting the quest coming out this turn.
And StanCifka is going to start the Pain Train with a Biofiltine Hunter. It's a decent 2-mana 10/10. You know, with half of it with Taunt. I wouldn't be too sad about that one. We're probably pushing damage. no point halting aggression at this point if you're ShtanUtachi.
So Holy Fire misses 5 face damage, but then it pushes the 5 chip damage from the minions, so it's just kind of like a free kill on a 5/5 to point at a minion instead of face. Very easy decision there.
And that's going to be the patches coming out of the deck with the deck hand. Oh god. This is where things get a little bit hairy for ShtanUtachi. He's got to close out this game in 2 turns after this. Otherwise, things are going to they're going to escalate a little bit too much, I think.
I want to point out a little sequencing thing. StanCifka deliberately drew last that turn. He played deckhand before Novice Engineer because he didn't want to risk the Novice Engineer drawing patches. So a nice little bit of sequencing, get those little things right, add percentage points to your game. That's the difference between being pro and being good. Just nailing all those tiny little percentage points that you can.
So we're on the I'm going to kill you as soon as I can.
Oh.
That's not bad.
Yeah, Alley Armor. I've seen worse 5 drops.
Now, the thing is, if you're StanCifka, do you even respect it, or do you just prep Vanish? Because if the Mage has to spend 5 mana on this, you're probably okay with it. The issue is you could push 10 damage before you put the Vanish down, so you're effectively nullifying the armor gain of the Armor Smith.
Yeah, you definitely want to kill the Armor Smith and not Vanish it to their hand, because you're just pushing more damage. Like, if you just take the trades on board, they gain 4 from the Armor Smith, and you push 10, so it's net 6 free damage to do damage before vanishing. And then the question is, do you vanish after to get some more charge damage off these guys?
Or do you think you can wait? Because I think you have to do it now with Flame Strike.
Yeah,
with Flame Strike a possibility in the deck, I think I'd be very scared of keeping these guys like at 3 health.
Sure.
So.
Plus, all of them get like Battlecry value. The Novice Engineer draws, the Biolphin gets an extra minion, the other 2 get 5 charge damage each. So
seems pretty good.
Just great board to vanish on just your own minions. That's part of the power of vanish in the deck. It's not just a tempo answer to the opponent's minions. It's also just a lot of value off of your own.
So ShtanUtachi is going to need some kind of miracle to stall. We're talking random card generation, gets a Nova, gets a Blizzard. Those are things that can happen. Getting to turn 10 for the Pyroblast finish is going to be pretty important. Because right now he's not looking like he's going to be able to close out the game. Guaranteed, but that's it, I think. Fireball into Firelens just does it.
Yeah, there should be no outs in StanCifka's rogue deck typically here.
I mean, we've seen Eater of Secrets before, but it's not really common at all.
Yeah. And what's the card that randomly generates? Swashbuckler has fallen out of favor. That would have been an out, but the problem with Swashbuckler and Quest Rogue, and it's not very obvious at all, unless you played the deck for a lot of games, is that the randomly generated spells for Swashbuckler are of very little value to Quest Rogue, because in the early game, Quest Rogue is desperately trying to spend its mana to complete the quest, which the Swashbuckler card almost never helps with. And in the late game, you're trying to efficiently spam 5/5s for 1 and 2 mana, which the Swashbuckler card often sucks at that as well. So the value of a Swashbuckler card is very low to Quest Rogue, just because of it not going with the game plan of Quest Rogue, completing the quest and then exploiting how to complete the quest.
Yeah, it's really just down to the fact that the earlier value of a Swashbuckler was, hey, I can get patches out, but that's more so true for something like Miracle Rogue, which doesn't want to get a 5/5 patches from the deck. Right. But as people have refined and gotten more used to playing the Quest Rogue, it definitely does feel like too slow a card for what the deck is trying to do. That being said, Quest Rogue will lose one of the games. However, it gets 3 tries, that is. In the Conquest format, I mean, you're probably happy to be left with Quest Rogue up against 3 chances. I'd be okay with that.
In any format, I'll take any deck with 3 chances most of the time.
Sure. Of all the decks, though, I think one of the decks that will eventually get a Degenerate opener the most often is Quest Rogue. This thing.
Well, speaking of Degenerate openers, StanUtachi's got turn 1 Vilefin Inquisitor, turn 2 Coin Murloc War Leader, and he's got a Megasaur on 4. So that's just a boatload of early minion pressure, which is exactly what you need to punish the Quest Rogue for spending its early turns trying to complete a quest instead of trying to efficiently fight for board like most decks do. He goes for the hero power.
Okay, interesting. So he wants to curve naturally for the Coin Spike Ridge Steed on 5, is what that means. Is that why he wants to go War Leader into Jandal into Coin Spike Ridge? That's usually the way I see this pan out.
Okay. I think turn turn 2 coin War Leader, just giving yourself outs to top deck something was also a pretty reasonable option. Like the worst case scenario wasn't bad at all, and there was a lot of upside if you had a top deck of like a 1 mana or 3 mana card or just any Murloc for turn 3.
Okay, now StanCifka's he's got everything basically, right? Like,
yeah, he can complete the quest. He's got enough stuff. The thing is,
so
he's dying.
absurd.
He's a little bit dying. So
Okay.
it's tricky.
You got to kill the War Leader, and then you're good to go, right? It's not that bad if you can kill the War Leader. It's a little bit on the slow end, but...
So do you want to dagger this turn to kill the War Leader? And
I
then,
think so, yeah. By far.
Yeah. Yeah, you can complete the quest next turn.
Because otherwise you're
Actually
exposing
play it,
yourself
'cause
to dying into 2 turns, right? Like, as you said, he's a little bit dying. It was definitely not in a fantastic spot, but he gets the full completion with the Shadow Steps if he wants it now. Can wait 1 extra turn to avoid Consecration, wiping the little Flame Elementals.
Well, he could... Oh, he's risking a Consecration, and ShtanUtachi does have it. StanCifka had the option to Shadow Step both 1/2s and leave them in his hand, and that way next turn he could play 0 mana 1/2s and play the quest and just have 2 5/5s in play next turn, have the quest developed.
Yeah, and the Wisp on top of that, so that would have been 3 5/5s even. That's crazy.
Yeah, the way he's doing it, he's risking both of his 1/2s being cleared, and then he doesn't have a clean quest completion on those Flame Elementals anymore, because there's nothing left to bounce on them. But
This might be him respecting ShtanUtachi's general thought process, where ShtanUtachi, if he had Consec and, say, Equality, would never Consec this, and so maybe he's trying to read into what ShtanUtachi's holding. Because if you don't see a Consec here, and the opponent's playing 2 of them, maybe it's worth playing around Equality by not going too wide on the AoE.
It's kind of crazy. These matches,
Yeah.
the players are playing so fast I can't even say all the things that they're thinking. There's just way too much going on.
But that was definitely a consideration. Like, there's like 3 answers in the Paladin deck to your board clears. So you've got Equality Consec, the Consec in that spot, and the Sunkeeper to Ream on their own that kind of halt your ability to get anything. And then ShtanUtachi playing the 4-drop here gets a big enough minion with Spike Receipt to stall 2 hits from 5/5. Then get the Stegodon, which eats up a dagger charge. It's like it's never ending. There's so many little nuances in terms of like trading tempo. It's hard to get all of it done at the speed these guys are playing.
Right. And here's what Wisp does for StanCifka's deck, or one of the many things it does. It's just a 0 mana 5/5. Any other minion would not have been able to hit play as a 5/5 this turn, right? So that's kind of why StanCifka's playing it. Also, it's really nice with Vanish. A lot of times Wisp Vanish gives you a good way to complete the quest if you otherwise didn't have one.
Yeah, it's kind of a cheat. It's kind of a way to cheese the quest out. People are referring to it as that. We've even seen, oddly enough, in well, I say oddly enough, but I don't think it's that odd if I think about it for a second. But we've seen Quest Rogue and Wild even include stuff like Target Dummy. It's just a better Wisp for the sake of this deck, which is pretty cool because it means that when Wild tournaments are eventually implemented, as Blizzard says they want to support the format, we might just see Target Dummy in the Quest Rogue.
Okay.
I dig it.
So Stan can clear the board here while face tanking 3, and then go something like Tidehunter, Brewmaster, Tidehunter, and he would have 4 dudes in play at the end of that, so 20 stats.
Seems about good. You don't need to preserve those 3/3s. They've kind of done their job already.
If he goes double Tidehunter instead of Tidehunter, Brewmaster, Tidehunter, it has the upside of if he draws any charger, he can just lethal from that the next turn. But doing it this way means if his board gets, say, Equality Consecration, then he has a Tidehunter for reload instead of a Brewmaster for reload, and that's, 2 bodies instead of 1.
2 bodies instead of 1. Yeah.
And that's also why he's trading. He's playing around this Equality Consecration quite beautifully.
Yeah, and I think that's why he didn't really worry about those 1/2s earlier. Respected the fact that ShtanUtachi would hold the Consec had it been there, and was just not worried at all. Assumed this would happen. So playing around the worst-case scenario is giving him more fuel later in the game.
Key thing to watch out for, though, is StanUtachi's Tyrian Forge Ring in the hand lines up extremely well against what Quest Rogue is doing. The 6/6 Taunt Divine Shield that leaves an Ashbringer. It eats 3 5/5s, the Divine Shield, and the 6/6 eats 2 more, because a lot of times you can't face tank 6 damage. And then behind that, it leaves an Ashbringer pushing a lot of potential damage. So a lot of times the Tyrian gets, it baits a Vanish, and then there's not a lot of damage coming in behind the Vanish.
StanCifka still hasn't played a Pirate, though, right? StanCifka still got the South Sea deckhands in there waiting to be played. with patches coming out. So whenever that happens, there's going to be a little bit of a burst in terms of damage that could bring him back in the game. But for now, he's going to need that crazy whiplash to happen, because Vanish on its own's not, it's not good enough just yet. You're not getting enough value out of it, so you're going to wait until they play their stuff. But without Chargers, Vanishing kind of feels awful. You're not, generating any tempo on the back of it.
Right. I want to say the way Stan traded that turn was correct and important. He left his Bilefin Tidehunter at 3 health, so if StanUtachi plays a turn 8 Primordial Drake or a second Consecration, the Bilefin Tidehunter is the one that survives for Vanishing and getting more value on the replay. So that was a good decision-making on how he traded last turn from StanCifka.
And now Cifka is staring down the Tyrion and thinking, can I face tank 6 and trade 2 guys away to maintain a tiny bit more than freeze his face with a Vanished Glacial Shard? That's got to be a consideration right now, because otherwise you're vanishing almost nothing. Unless you open up with Vanish, in which case...
If you're opening with Vanish, then you're just replaying
Yeah.
Bilefin Tidehunter and the 5/5 and a Wisp.
I'm not a huge fan of that necessarily. I mean, it's a good tempo play. It definitely brings you back on board. It heals your guys up, and then you have more stuff to trade away into Tyrion. So effectively, you net 1 extra minion. I'm just not a big fan of it.
I like the Mimic Pod lead. It's rough to wait until the rope starts to... Oh, Backstab's just one of the worst cards to hit up Mimic Pod. That's one of the reasons people are playing less Backstabs. When people first discovered Quest Rogue, there was a lot of double Backstab, double Eviscerate, because the cards are just so good. They're great tempo tools to help you survive the early game, which the deck needs. But the Backstabs and Eviscerates are so bad when you have a completed quest, because think about it. Do you want a card that deals 2 damage, or do you want like a 1-mana 5/5?
I think I'll take...
a little better.
I think I'll take my 2 backstabs against Tyrion specifically, but against everything else is pretty awful. But you're like, that card is just, it dilutes the value of your Mimic Pods so much in your late game draws that it's been kind of a losing condition for Rogue at times.
So StanUtachi goes for the Harrison because it allows True Silver to connect, setting up lethal.
And he knows there's a Glacial Shard in that opponent's hand. He knows there's the oozes, but that's not really what he's worried about at the moment.
He just wants to squeeze in the damage when he can, because he knows it just really restricts StanCifka's options going forward.
Now, suddenly, there's no face-tanking Tyrion possible. We were talking about restricting options. You can't face-tank the Tyrion anymore if you're StanCifka. Had the opportunity last turn, sure, you died at Consec, but sometimes you get away with it. Now it's just an impossibility.
And these backstabs are limited value.
They're going to be kept for Tyrion for sure, though. They're fantastic against him because you trade only 1 5/5 into him, right?
Instead of 3, yeah. They're kind of like 5/5 charges in terms of what they're doing to get to your Tyrion. Great point. Pushing every bit of damage you can.
Shtan is going to need a miracle because I think he's dead on board right now.
He needs a quality.
And that's
quality
not
of
it.
Primordial Drake.
That is not it.
So he doesn't have mana for Hydrologist Secret plus Raglight Lord. Is there anything he can do? He's staring down 36 damage.
You could get Stonehill Defender into something like a Psychotron into Hydrologist, and you have a board. You can hope for that extra equality draw. I'm not sure if that saves you, but it definitely looks like it does if you put enough taunts down.
Yeah, how about Stonehill Defender into, I think it's Cyclopean Horror, the 4-mana 3/3 that gets +1 health for each enemy minion.
It would
so
soak up
3/10. Okay. Yeah, and then you can Hydrologist with a Secret with that. That's the key point.
That's better than Psychotron by a long shot. Just because you get to weave in the extra 1-mana Secret. And he's going to go for the 3-mana play here. Does pick up Sen'jin, so that soaks up 1 hit. And with the Hydrologist, with Redemption, that could do it too. We see the backstab on StanCifka's side, so he's just going to backstab something that doesn't cause any issues.
Well, you can't backstab the Redemption because it is a damaged minion at that point.
Yeah.
Fixed Noble Sacrifice.
Yeah, we could backstab the 2/2, so if Redemption's triggered, then it doesn't resurrect a taunt, right?
And Patches is a great draw for StanCifka. Normally you don't say that, but yeah, 1-mana 5/5 charge, what up?
Do you ever backstab your own 5/5 before trading to Sen'jin to make room for Patches? I think you have to.
There's no lethal now because he didn't start with this face. Now there's 6 minions attacking and only 4 go face. Had StanCifka started with the dagger attack, he would have had lethal this turn, right?
He has to. If you backstab one of his 5/5s, doesn't he go through anyway? If you backstab a 5/5, you kill it on Sen'jin, so it makes room for Patches.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. That's like the only way I could see a lethal happen here is going to push exactly 25 at the end of that sequence. Man, that board was awkwardly filled up for StanCifka at the end there, but he still makes it. Well, by a very tiny margin. Senjin actually being dealt, oddly enough, by StanCifka backstabbing his own guy. That was weird.
So StanCifka takes the stand mirror 3-1 over ShtanUtachi. It is kind of the expected result based on the lineups. That's part of what happens in Conquest. You commit to a lineup strategy early on, and there's a little bit of randomness in what lineup you queue into, but it's not pure randomness. There's a lot of predicting the metagame and anticipating, what are my opponents likely to bring and what's the best lineup against the kinds of lineups that they're bringing in. There's just a ton of strategy that goes into deck building and all of that, and that's what I was going to be doing today, and I'll be doing later today, preparing for NA prelims.
Yeah, with the NA prelims, after the results that we've had actually just yesterday, I believe, there's a lot of movement behind the scenes for a lot of the pro players that are going to be attending the NA prelims. That being said, guys, we're done with the second match of the day. We'll be back after a short break with the third match of the day, which is going to be Kolento versus Sho. So Kolento is going to be back at it again. Competitive circuit definitely is a thing these days. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.